Good evening. Welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, September 20th, 2010. This evening, City Council is meeting in regular session. We do have a quorum with all members of council present. Disposition of minutes. Before us, we have the minutes of the regular session held September 7th, 2010. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have accepted the minutes of September 7th. Communications. I do have a notice of a public hearing I would like to read. Athens City Council will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. Monday, October 18th, 2010, in these chambers on the third floor of the City Building. This hearing is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to zone the Old Peach Ridge annexation area as R1. Any interested parties are invited to attend and express their opinion. Are there other communications anyone wishes to share? Member Sands.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask that we accept the auditor's finance reports for the month of August. They are on display in the council office.
Yes, and council members are always emailed a copy. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have accepted the auditor's reports. Any other communications? Member Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, I wanted to announce that I received a couple emails about some complaints regarding maybe odd incidences in behavior over the course of the weekend. So I don't know if the mayor is aware of that or not, but just some challenges with maybe trespassing and people passing out on other people's front porches and the likes. It's a little discerning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other communications? Reports and communications. I'm sorry. Member Gosney.
I just wanted to quickly, a couple people approached me asking how they could help with the disaster relief from the storms we had. I just wanted to put a plug in for the Athens County Red Cross. So if anyone is looking for a place to donate to help the victims of that disaster we had last week, Athens County Red Cross, you can find their information at athensohredcross.org.
Thank you. Other communications? Reports and communications from other elected officials. Mayor Weil.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the city workers and administration working together with the county on the tornado event. Police department, fire department, and public works went out there, responded to mutual aid request for the event out towards the plains. Of course, OU was helpful very too. They provide dorm space. We were anticipating a lot of people coming in, and they made room for us. Of course, our east side of town was out of power, so community center, which was the fallback position, was not possible to use at the time. Essentially, AEP also did a good job. We actually pushed them a little bit to get everything up and running as fast as possible, and they did, considering our wastewater treatment plant is necessary for the functioning of a city. They were very helpful. I was at the OU Inn for an event Friday morning, watching them staggering, half dead from working all night long, you know. And again, we had some good responders. There was a lot we missed it. We could have had a lot worse. I think those out in the county did. Again, part of the thing is that we realized at the staff meeting is that we do need to have a better backup system for generation, electrical generation in the future. We'll be looking at that. Mostly community center, if it had power, that would have been a fallback. The wastewater treatment plant had enough power to run it at a limited capacity. Lift pumps and water pumps, lift stations and water pumps were one of the other issues. We dealt with them pretty well, but at the same time we realized that there are things that need to be dealt with or rather, worked in. And every time something like this happens, it's a learning experience. I know there'll be a debriefing somewhere along the line in the future. The only other thing I want to mention in passing is, well, two things actually. One is we have an economic development revolving loan fund. It was monitored sometime in July. Part of the thing is pointed out is we really need to renew our contract with Enterprise Development Corporation. So I'll come to you sometime in the near future to ask for authorization to do so. It hasn't been done in many years. The other one, of course, is that the county is running. County Commission is going to have their comprehensive plan final meeting, public hearing. This will be tomorrow, 7 p.m. at the Athens County Cooperative Extension Offices, 280 West Union Street. This is their last run at the comprehensive plan. I think it's on the county planner's website if you want to look at it. I think it's about 200 pages, so if you want to read it, you've got to start reading now. And that's all I really have.
Questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor Weil. City Auditor Kathy Hecht.
No report.
City Law Director Patrick Lang.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
And let's move on to ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 8110 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Athens, Ohio, to enter into an agreement with the state of Ohio for renewal of an easement necessary for the sanitary relief sewer, projects 17, 18, and 19, on land under the jurisdiction of Ohio University and declaring an emergency. Member Bain.
Mr. President, move adoption of 8110.
Second.
8110 will continue our use of land that is roughly very close to the Innovation Center in either direction, but especially that area. We put in relief sewers as part of the Clean Water Act effort, and one of them went too close to the Innovation Center, so it was moved. This is an effort at having an easement for where our sewer lines is, which is a big step forward in some cases. Sometimes they were put in before the land switched, so on and so forth. But now it's recorded for 25 years.
Motion and a second to adopt ordinance 8110. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 8210 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Athens, Ohio, to enter into an agreement with the state of Ohio for renewal of an easement for a water line and pump station on East State Street under the jurisdiction of Ohio University and declaring an emergency. Again, Member Bain.
Mr. President, move adoption of 8210.
Second.
8210 is an agreement with the state to have an easement and the pump station on East State Street in the vicinity of the second mall. Not University Mall, but the one that's across from Odd Lots.
Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 8210 has been adopted. Ordinance 8310 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Athens, Ohio, to enter into an agreement with the state of Ohio for an easement for a water line on Home Street under the jurisdiction of Ohio University and declaring an emergency. Again, Member Bain.
Move adoption of 8310.
Second.
8310 continues an agreement for an easement on Home Street. Most people probably would think that the main lines would go down East State Street, but in fact they do go through Home Street and then back in the vicinity of the bike path. It's kind of an interesting way the city was planned. But there it is. This is one of our needed easements.
Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 8410 is an ordinance closing a portion of Court Street on Monday, October 25th, 2010, from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. for a trick-or-treat hosted by the Athens Uptown Business Association. Member Nisley.
Mr. President, I move adoption of 8410.
Second.
This is closes a portion of of Court Street, and this is for an event sponsored by the Athens Uptown Business Association. It's for trick-or-treating for young people in the community, for children. It brings a lot of parents and children into the community. It will close Court Street from West Union to Carpenter Street for that period of time, and as we clarified last week, it also allows free parking in the municipal parking garage during those hours.
And it is an extremely popular event. All those in favor of adoption of 8410, I'm sorry, Mayor Weil.
Because the Court Street will be closed, realize there will be traffic backup, so just be aware of it. If you don't need to go uptown, or if you are, just be aware that you want to plan around that.
So it won't be popular with everybody.
Well, not with everybody.
Okay.
Yes. With little kids, yes.
Yes. All those in favor of adoption of 8410?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 8510 is an ordinance banning parking and closing that portion of Court Street from Mulberry to Carpenter on October 30th and 31st in anticipation of a large number of people converging on downtown Athens. What could that be? Yes, folks, we're talking Halloween weekend. Member Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think.
Yeah.
This ordinance, not to be mistaken for the previous ordinance, will be a little different. I move to adopt, Mr. President. Thank you. Briefly, just a little bit of background. In the past, the Clean and Safe Halloween Committee has worked collaboratively with the city administration to really get their ducks in a row for this particular weekend. And a lot of the next four ordinances are all addressing Halloween in an effort to really stress the word or concept of safety. I think that's the main key here with all these issues. So essentially, this particular ordinance is looking at banning parking, closing vehicular traffic, and then, as necessary, employing uniformed members of the police department and other city employees to preserve peace and public order. Thank you, Mr. President.
Motion and a second to adopt. All those in favor of adoption of Ordinance 8510?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 8610 is an ordinance establishing a glass-free drinking container zone on Court Street and adjoining sidewalks between Union and State on October 30th and 31st, 2010. Again, Member Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt this ordinance 8610.
Second.
Again, this is stressing the idea of safety. Since there's a large number of people in the proximity of Court Street, it makes sense to have that area free of glass containers. So quite simply, this is, again, a safety issue. Thank you.
All those in favor of adoption of 8610?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 8710 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Chapter 1104, vending, peddling, and soliciting to allow vending in a designated area on October 30th and 31st and 2010 Halloween weekend. We don't need the "and" there, but anyway, Member Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt ordinance 8710.
Second.
And again, this is in reference to Halloween. It's simply just looking at the vending and peddling efforts. And during the first reading, I acknowledged some of the details from Section 3 regarding the vendors and their license, and no registration fee required for charitable organizations and civic groups and nonprofits. So again, referencing the details pertaining to vending for that weekend.
All those in favor of adoption of Ordinance 8710?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 8810 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Section 130410, unnecessary noise in the downtown area on October 30th and 31st, 2010. Again, Member Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. And lastly, this ordinance, I move to adopt 8810.
Second.
Thank you. This particular ordinance is, again, specifically addressing noise. During Halloween, many of you are aware of, we have a stage with performances going on. So this is a temporary ban on the noise pertaining to the bandstand and the performances that are taking place on Court Street. Thank you.
Further discussion, Member Fall.
I'd like to point out that it is in the downtown area only. It's not a blanket, citywide, free card for noise on Halloween weekend.
Does not mean you can have a band on your front porch on
That's
the
right.
east side of Athens. That's correct.
So, or anywhere in Athens, so.
Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of Ordinance 8810?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 9010 is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2010 year-end appropriations, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Member Sands.
Mr. President, I move adoption of Ordinance 9010.
Second.
This ordinance simply does what the title suggests. The state auditors don't like to have appropriations carried over from one year to the next, and the city council doesn't like the chore of reducing those ordinances all and then catching them before the end of the year. So this authorizes the auditor's office to handle that task, which is a task of quite a bit of effort, but hers is the office best suited to handle it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Member Fall.
Well, I want to point out that it's a reduction only, and it's,
Yes.
So it's not giving free rein to the auditor, it's just reducing the 2010 year-end appropriations.
We don't want to do
There's no increases allowed there, Kathy, okay?
Yeah,
That
just
has
watch
been
it.
pointed out to you? Okay.
I don't like the increase.
Just for the television people.
Yeah. It's hard to explain, but this is just basically a housekeeping issue that the state auditor has asked us to do, and I know that when we did each one at a time, you had an ordinance that was probably pages long, and then for
And we
any...
forgot some.
And then we would always, anytime you pass something with that many, you have to revisit it with the mistakes that are made, or something that didn't get through, or prior year bill, or on and on and on. This makes it a lot cleaner. Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 9010?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. On to ordinances for second reading now. Ordinance 8910 is an ordinance amending the 2010 appropriation ordinance.
what it is. It's just
On to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 9110 is an ordinance declaring certain vehicles no longer needed for municipal purpose. What are you getting rid of, Member Bain?
Oh, Mr. President, this is what happens when you're the only person from the Finance Committee that goes to a meeting. You have a
You'll
bunch of-
learn.
I
would think
I
after
will check
20-some
next time.
years.
So
that's
the
okay.
police department occasionally has vehicles that are from criminal forfeiture, and this is what we have: two vehicles, a 92 Ford and a 95 Chevrolet, that will be sold in auction once this ordinance is completely read and certified.
Other comments?
Are these
Member Fall.
from drug forfeitures?
All I know is that it's criminal forfeiture of vehicle, I would assume so.
I saw their new Dare vehicle. Which they should.
Other comments? I don't think we still have the Porsche, do we?
Yes, we do.
We do?
And I don't think these are in any shape. As far as I know, they're both pretty much junkers.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see those going through ordinance format before too long, too. Okay, that was first reading. On to ordinance 9210, an ordinance approving an amendment to the solid waste management plan for the Athens Hawkins Solid Waste District for implementation of a generation fee and declaring an emergency. Member Bain.
Mr. President, I'd like to move to consider 9210 under suspension of the rules.
Second.
The reason for the suspension, we've already done it. We're going to try and sort of nudge some of the more recalcitrant people, please don't put that in the paper, to go ahead and vote for it. They're all writing it down. Watch that.
Ensure that it's a blown quote.
It must have been somebody else who said that. But in any case, I figure we can stand up with our commissioners and say, yes, we're in favor of this. And so that's why I'd like to consider it under suspension of the rules. We passed it before. It failed in another county close to us, north of us. So I'd like to
What
see.
one that could have been.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it out there saying, "See, we did it again. Now it's time for you."
Motion and second to consider 9210 under suspension of council rules. Further discussion on suspension only. All in favor of suspension?
Aye.
Opposed? The rules have been suspended.
I move adoption of 9210.
Second.
9210 is a second effort, where maybe things are better the second time around, where we're going to try and get a fee added to our solid waste solid waste charges. Specifically, we're going to add $3 to each ton deposited in our local landfill, or in the landfill that Rumpke has over in a county to the west of us in Jackson County, or in West Virginia. This is a generation fee, so that no matter where the solid waste from our county and the other county are, wherever they find their final home, the person making the deposit pays extra, and that comes back to fund the solid waste district. Now, some people have suggested that this is going to be a huge amount of money for each individual, and actually each of us generates about a ton of solid waste a year. I'm hoping that we will decrease the amount. In Athens, we recycle a fair amount. And so what it would mean is $3 a year spread over the whole 52 weeks, so it's not going to break anybody at all. But of course, I suppose that anytime you have a situation like this, there's always a chance people will increase. The county raised the rates, therefore I have to raise the bill $5. Now, you can use your critical thinking abilities and say, that's not right. But it may happen, but there's no reason for it. It's a couple cents each month. That's what we're talking about here. And so now funding the solid waste district, what the solid waste district has to do is fill in tons of paperwork for the EPA. I mean, they're our liaison. This county's and the county to the north's liaison with the EPA. So, and they have a fair amount of money already on as a surcharge on the solid waste as well. So if you think about that truck driving down the road in front of you, the one that maybe stops you once in a while, it's probably got 10 or 12 tons in it, and so it will pay, instead of $27 a ton, maybe $30 a ton, so it'll be paying $330 to dump it, and we probably dump 4 in the city of Athens a week. So you can see it's not a huge amount of money, but what it will do is provide necessary personnel and activities to continue what we've been doing in this county, and I hope we go forward with a solid waste management plan that's better.
Motion and a second on adoption of 9210. Further discussion? Mayor Weil.
Okay, the generation fee, as Nancy mentioned, is to implement and administer the solid waste district, Athens Hocking Solid Waste District. All the surrounding waste districts have, for the most part, a generation fee. There are a few that do not. Some range between a couple dollars to as much as $9 per ton. We have not increased we've never had a generation fee before. We have not increased our tipping fees since '96. So therefore, you can think of what it costs you in '96 to buy something and to operate something. So we need to add this. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here because we voted on it before. I think it'll pass this time between both counties. If not, then we'll have a hard time actually putting the solid waste strategy together, which is due this year to be done, with the idea that once you have a new strategy, it's a 5-year plan, we have to implement it. And we're working on that. I'm on the policy board. Nancy is representing, of course, portions of the city. One of the biggest waste generators in the 2 counties, which is the city.
And the 2 cities and the 2 counties must both pass it, and townships either vote on it. If they vote against it, it counts against it, but there's specific requirements in the state law with respect to passing this fee. It's not a tax, it's a user fee, remember that.
Further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 9210?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 9310 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into contract with Creative Microsystems, Inc. to expand the city's existing financial system to add a utilities billing module and declaring an emergency. Member Bain.
Mr. President, I was just looking at it. I think we're going to read this one more time, possibly next week. I know there was an offer for a huge reduction, $2,000 on $60,000. And since we're acting in good faith here, I wonder if I made a mistake doing it's supposed to be $60,000. It looks like I'm short $2,000 somewhere. So I'm going to try and figure that out, and I'll be back next week, maybe with a small special session or the first week in October. I thought I did my arithmetic appropriately. But utility billing, let's just look at how it was set up. Actually, I had $46,000, and I moved it up to $60,000, which is what it's supposed to be. And it looks like, because I would be, $58,000. So what we have is $20,000 from the water fund, $21,000 from the sewer fund, $10,000 from the garbage fund, $6,000 from the parking garage fund. Those are all users of the system because that's what we're paying for here. It hasn't been all that long ago that we bought another set of software. I will refrain from restating my Blackboard comment, but it's the same situation. And so now we have then the expenditure authorized. And we'll get back to you next week on this with an amended version. And I'm the one that made the mistake on the arithmetic.
Okay.
And Kathy, if you'd ask those people at Sun, wait a minute, it's not Sun, NCR, since we're working it through Creative Microsystems, and since cities don't usually do things in 2 weeks, ask them if they'd extend it a couple weeks for us. Because it's, they can do it. Ask them, and if they can't, they can't. But we'll see, okay?
Well,
I guess I hate to throw this out there, but I thought you were going to suspend that appropriation ordinance tonight.
No, I'm not going to suspend either until we get it sorted out.
No, I mean the previous one that was just second reading. It was amended, and anyway, you kind of zipped right through it because it was second reading, but some of that stuff we wanted taken care of, so our end of the month.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
So you want to
didn't realize we
well,
were to.
okay.
So just consider, I'm happy to ask them that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's a large amount of money, but I don't know. I don't know. By the end of the month is the deadline, but if you should decide to have a special quick session next week,
if we need to.
you could do that one.
Yeah, and but
I'd still get it in, but it's...
It's amidst the 60,000. I mean, every little bit counts. I agree, but they could also extend it. They could. I don't know if they will, but ask them. See if they really want our business.
Further discussion on ordinance 9310.
I don't know what I did.
No, I wouldn't weigh in. Ordinance 9410, an ordinance amending the part-time and seasonal staffing levels and declaring an emergency. Which fine member of the Finance and Personnel Committee would like? Member Bain.
Okay, this took on a life of its own. Here we are with the 9410. It has several things that have happened in it, and we pass things around. Retroactive to January 1st, 2010, we have some changes to the staffing ordinance. Some were occasioned by some modifications that happened. We already did page 1 earlier in the year, where we took the minimum wage up with a $2 cap on it for parking and so on and so forth. But as you see this was done earlier, although it looks like it's part-time and seasonal employees only. We're not really dealing with the main workforce of the city, the one that we have benefits for and everything else. But this is a very important part of our workforce. You have landscape seasonal workers, you have auxiliary officers, some no changes there, but we have recreation programs added. Since we were doing this, I asked the safety service director to ask the recreation person, to ask the personnel person, and we made all the changes possible. All the possible titles that are currently in use are now in this. So we don't have daycare aides anymore, or swim aides, but we do have people that are filling other jobs. And so I think they were all worked out, and we can see that the range is a minimum wage plus $2, in some cases $7.80 plus $2. These are many times, I would say, student workers, or not always, but people that are working part-time on a small-term contract basis. The head lifeguard, you see, it's worth more money. Our lives depend on him. Pool manager, and so on and so forth. You can see all the different areas. And there isn't really a whole bunch of change going on here. We're covering some things that needed to be done with respect to the ordinance that we might have done earlier if we'd known it was an issue. But now we're doing it. We knew that the minimum wage went up, but when you restate it, then you have it covered for the next time the minimum wage changes. Hopefully it won't go down. The number of employees for each position will vary to meet program needs. So although you might think, oh my goodness, they'll run out and hire 75 preschool aides, they can't do it because they don't have the money in the budget. So it's the thing that the manager of the budget handles with respect. So we don't put down a limit on it or any of those things. Youth referees and so on. Okay, so you have enough time to formulate questions between now and the next time, but that's what we've done. We cleaned up a mess and took care of another set of circumstances.
Other comments?
Here we go.
Yes, I'm sorry. Member Gosney.
So this is also adding the IT technician we discussed last week?
Yes, it's there, but I don't know if there's enough money in the budget. Thank you for saying that. I thought I saw it, but then
Yeah, it's at the bottom of the first
It's the bottom.
page.
And I was told by one person that there's enough money to cover it, and I was told by another person that there's not enough money to cover it. I hope somebody
So
figures
we'll see.
We'll see. And this is to help, it comes out of the internal service fund only, and it would be to work with the new task of phones, along with software, along with everything else. And I did thanks a lot for picking up on that. I meant to say it earlier.
Other comments? Okay, where am I? Ordinance 9510 is an ordinance amending the 2010 appropriation ordinance. Member Coons.
Thank you, Mr. President. We talked about this last week in committee, and this is $7,200 to repair the ramp at Fire Station 2. That's Richland Avenue.
Other comments? Ordinance 9610 is an ordinance granting a revocable license to Southeast Beverage Company, 772 West Union Street, for use of the right-of-way for a sign. Member Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is exactly what the title says. This is the first granting of the revocable license. It will be good for 10 years. You've been given a picture of the sign. It's pretty straightforward granting of a revocable license.
Other comments? Ordinance 9710 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapter 1108, Taxi Cabs. Member Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was put in by the Taxi Board to change Code Title 11. And basically what it's doing is changing the 110810 appeal and review process to have the Taxi Board be in charge of the process, and changing some of the notice requirements, the time for notice requirements and appeal requirements, to give a little more time to the people involved. And the Taxi Board has requested this.
Other comments? Yes, Member Sands.
And what the taxi board is suggesting is that city council
Is removing it.
step out of this, and the taxi board would deal with those issues.
Which makes sense because many of the other appeal and review processes that we have involves the boards themselves, and the council does not get involved.
Any other comments? Ordinance 9810 is an ordinance accepting the petition for annexation of approximately 9.81 acres on Old Peach Ridge Road. Member Fall.
This is the culmination of a very long process that we go through in order to annex property. This has been on public review for for 60 days. And we have talked about it in committee several times. So this is 9.81 acres that would be added to the city on Old Peach Ridge Road.
Other comments? Ordinance 9910, boy, we're getting there. An ordinance designating the zone for the Old Peach Ridge Road annexation area. Member Fall.
This is a partner with the ordinance before, 9810. In order to annex, we have to also designate the zoning designation for the annexation area. This is taking the city plan, Planning Commission's recommendation for the Old Peach Ridge Road annexation area to be zoned R1. And as Mr. Bias said before, there is a public hearing on it, October 18th, 2010, in the City Council offices.
Other comments?
Mr. President, could we look at that map a minute? It looks like it has Athens County Commissioners. I keep thinking that it's wrong, but I think it's just the right-of-way. But it seems to me that we use on that property, on this survey from Southeastern Land Surveys, maybe it's further up, but there wasn't access to the Strouds Run pump station. I've not seen it on a map before. Before we read it again, Paul, could you find out if it crosses over that right-of-way?
Are you talking about on the other side of the 33 or this side of 33?
On the County Road 20 side of the one that goes over the Old Peach Ridge, no, not Old Peach Ridge, but the one that is.
You're talking about are you talking about the land itself?
Yeah, there's a chunk of land that has
Okay, the lower right-hand corner of
right.
the map.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's a pathway where we have used. It's even got a lock gate that goes up to the Strouds Run Reservoir. I don't know if it traverses this land, but we probably need to check it and put a deed restriction in if that's what we're doing. Okay. Oh, he's taking off his
I can
glasses.
ask. I thought that was for the pump stations further to the, I guess would be the south of this map.
It may be, but I just thought it would be good to be diligent in case it isn't.
I think we discussed this briefly, but can we recheck on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it looks like the magic marker and also zones the road. I mean, I just,
That's quite possible. It's happened before, land cuts across roads.
well, yeah, but I mean, we do have a right-of-way, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, it does say county commissioner's easement. So it's probably
Yeah.
theirs before we annexed it.
I hope that before it's final read, we can have some kind of understanding of what's going on there, please. I mean, just to make sure, I think you're probably right on that first one, on the pathway, but, because it's really not 9.8 acres then, if the right-of-way is. I mean,
Well, rights of ways, yeah.
it's taking the road. I mean,
If you look at the map on to the other side, to the west, I guess I'm assuming west, if that's north.
It's west.
It's also, the path technically goes over the road on that side, which is the old Peachwood Road itself, if I'm reading it correctly. This, if I'm reading this also, it says this was done in 1999, right?
I don't even think he does surveys anymore. It looks like...
No, he doesn't. I don't think he's retired.
I'd just like to know for sure, I mean, for example, it's on the, maybe it looks like the property is on the one side of the road, and it's not really our problem, but it could be our problem.
Well, if there's an easement and a right-of-way, it doesn't make a difference, but I'll check.
Please.
And you want to know a relationship to our pump station up
To
there?
the pathway
Okay,
that's, it's got a gate, and I've not seen it on a map like this before, so.
Okay, and as I say, I thought it was further south. It's further along
And we
than
should have
there,
done
but I
this
might
in
be
committee,
wrong.
but it's,
Okay.
and I apologize for that, but once you see it on the map, it goes, oh my goodness.
Other comments? Under resolutions for first reading, R0910 is a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. Member Sands.
First of all, Mr. President, question, this is a 3-reading resolution, is that correct?
However,
Then
it's due to the county auditor by October 1st. I just got it from them
But-
last week. And
Yes, it's our agenda that's incorrect, and with the permission of the law director, can we recognize that as a typo?
Which thing? So it's still reading for, it's still for first
Oh,
reading.
for first reading, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, but it needs to be suspended.
Yes.
Or we can meet when it's...
Or read it.
Because
We
we've got it.
most likely are going to be meeting next week. Okay. We have a
It's due by
suggestion.
October 1st, so whatever you want to
Yeah.
do.
Well, we have a suggestion that we'll probably have a special session and do that next week. This boils down to the fact that we all know that the county collects most of the property tax within the county. However, the city has an approved amount, 10 mills inside the Athens Township and outside Athens Township. We know that a small part of the city is actually out of Athens Township and comprised of part of Canaan Township, so we get some tax millage there also. So this is actually, amounts to $853,000 worth of property tax due the city from the county who has collected it. And so when they present us with this resolution, we approve it and say, thank you.
Send us a check.
Thank the citizens.
And so we will bring this up again at a special session next week.
Other comments on Resolution 0910? On to announcements and other business. Do I have 3 members of council requesting a special session?
Yes, 4.
4, 5.
We have a special session.
Yeah, could we leave the Peach Ridge thing off unless we have exact information?
Whatever any sponsoring member of council wishes to have their ordinances on, get with the clerk and tell them you want it on.
First,
Yeah.
except that one, unless we have the information. I mean, would the deed include that right of way, for example? It should.
No, you just need to keep in mind that we have a time frame that we have to adopt that annexation, and we are on recess for about 6 weeks.
That's terrible, isn't it?
So, just want to keep in mind.
We're going to do a lot of suspending next week.
Okay, hopefully you've got
And this one should
all
be
members of council present.
Everything Kirsten's
Any other announcements, committee meetings, anything else? Yes. Member Gosney, I'm sorry.
Yes, I need an environment committee to hear from professional group about the energy efficiency work. I assume so. Mayor?
Okay. What?
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Is the perfection group going to be here next week?
I believe we're scheduling for that, as well as we want the planning commission here, and the Andy Stone's going to be here.
So could we meet at 6:45 and have perfection start at 7?
I think that's fine with us.
Would that be okay?
Special session at 6:45.
Is that okay? Or 7:15, whatever you guys think. We're going to have a long night.
Yeah, because I also would like a committee meeting. We wanted to have the Planning Commission also come for a joint meeting because Andy Stone is going to be presenting
Long-term planning,
Long-term
infrastructure
planning.
plans. Speaking
Infrastructure.
of which, of course, there's going to be a opening of Jeff Hill, I think the Friday, we're
This
talking
Friday.
about, and Saturday, of course, is for the roundabout, so
Right.
all
But,
invited.
So we'll have 2 guest speakers, I guess. So,
Member Nisley.
Request for community issues, because there'll be a brief presentation from the OU Service Learning staff.
Jim.
Let me schedule a finance and personnel.
Ever President of Finance Committee?
Stuff is obviously coming up.
Member Butler, I wouldn't let the opportunity for a committee meeting.
No, I'm actually hearing the Public Works Director's name mentioned reminded me that he's planning, along with the city planner, they're doing a sidewalk walk this Thursday. They're mapping out some of the sidewalks around town that they're hoping to fix or replace. So either contact them or the mayor for if you're interested in
12:30 Thursday.
12:30 Thursday. So they're going to have a
Conference room, yeah.
brief description of or training of what to look for in the sidewalks, and they're diligently mapping out the repair needs of sidewalks throughout the city. So I just wanted a quick reminder to everyone.
Thanks for doing
Yeah.
that. Got it.
Other announcements
No
or any other
committees need from
business?
me.
On to an opportunity for citizens to speak to Athens City Council on any items or legislative items or city services that we did not discuss tonight on our agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak before council? Nate?
Nate Hall, 143 Grosvenor Street. Tonight, many of you on council know me in a different role, but tonight I'm here representing Student Senate as the Vice Commissioner for City and County Affairs. I was prepared to speak tonight to introduce myself to you and express Student Senate's willingness to cooperate in any endeavors going forward. The hand that Mother Nature has dealt us requires that we act on that more quickly and make such an introduction somewhat frivolous. To the victims of this natural disaster, I want to say that you are in the hearts, prayers, and minds of students, and we'll do anything we can to help. No need will go unmet. No request is too great. Though we are lucky that no one in our community was killed by these storms, many did lose their homes and their peace of mind. This truly is a tragedy, but in this tragedy, we can find opportunity. An opportunity to work together, an opportunity to forge lasting relationships, and a spirit of cooperation between different parts of our community. Student Senate and members of the student community will do whatever we can to help. The labor is there, ready and willing. All the city needs to do is say the word. Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Hey, could you give a contact number or something?
Yeah, my number is 513-304-3042. I'd be happy to forward any information, any requests along to the rest of Student Senate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak before council? Seeing none and having addressed all items on our agenda, we stand adjourned.